Welcome to The Volley, a podcast by Tennis Majors, bringing you in-depth insight into tennis's latest hot topics from the Tennis Majors team.
Welcome back to The Volley, a podcast brought to you by Tennis Majors. I'm your host, Max Whittle, but the only name on our lips today is Carlos Alcaraz, the 18-year-old Spanish sensation who has put himself front and centre at the US Open with some incredible performances. Mr. Alcaraz has made our goal to bring you conversation and insight into the biggest tennis news around the globe more straightforward than we ever could have imagined. It's so great to be back on the podcast. I hope everyone out there is doing well and enjoying the last weeks of summer and, of course, the final Grand Slam of the year. Whether you're new to the Volley or a regular listener, it's worth saying that here at Tennis Majors, we are dedicated to discussing the latest tennis news via digital media, bringing you, the tennis fans, video, debate, and news from the tennis world. And there really is no debate about the future of Juan Carlos Alcaraz, the youngest player in the Open era to reach the US Open men's last 8. He climbed 350 spots in the ATP rankings in 2020. And having spoken to Tennis Majors last year about how excited he was to practice with Roger Federer at Wimbledon, he is now on his way to very much competing with that caliber of player. On the show today, we will find out who Carlos Alcaraz is, what is his story, what makes him who he is today, and of course, we'll get the crystal ball out and discuss what is to come for this young star. Really excited to have Sasa Ozmo back on the Volley today, who has interviewed Alcaraz many times for Tennis Majors. Carlos is the man, and Sasa is the man in the know. Let's get to it.
It is victory for Carlos Alcaraz. Listen to that noise.
6-3, 4-6, 7-6, love 6, 7-6.
The biggest victory of his career. His first top 5 win. And the first journey into the 4th round of the major for the young Spaniard. A phenomenal performance. Holds his nerve on the biggest stage in tennis. He's done it. 6 in the 5th.
Sasa, great to have you back on the Volley podcast. The last time you were on, we talked about Novak Djokovic. Today, it's a player almost half his age, Carlos Alcaraz. He's the talk of the town right now. And Sasa, your first task is to tell us who he is. What do we need to know?
Oh, that is a broad-ranging question. He's only 18 years old, but you have to know a lot by this time because he's been the newcomer of the year last season. He broke into top 100 in May, and he's about to break top 40, if I'm not mistaken, with his US Open quarterfinals, and he's not done yet. But that is only the beginning of what I think is going to be a wonderful career.
I have to say one player that is similar to my game, I think is Federer, trying to be aggressive all the time. I think it's a good similar for me.
For someone who's never seen him play, how would you describe his game?
Actually, it's funny you should say that because that is the exact same thing I've asked Carlos when we've done our interview before this season started. To someone who hasn't watched him yet, I would describe him as first thing that comes to my mind is that he is a player with a lot of variety. He can play in different ways, and I think these last two matches with Tsitsipas and Gojovcik have demonstrated that because he was extremely aggressive in his match against Tsitsipas, and he was hitting, he was on fire. But against Gojovcik, when things didn't go his way that much, he knew when to, let's say, pull the plug and be maybe a bit more patient to not go for winners all the time. But overall, he has a very good forehand. He hits it with much confidence and he is very aggressive with it. Also, he can change the direction of the ball easily with his backhand as well. He can go down the line. He can go cross court very comfortably. And the one thing that I think anyone who's watched him noticed it, is that he's not afraid of the moment. So he'll always be aggressive, and that is actually one of the things that his coach, Juan Carlos Ferrero, tried to instill in him, to, especially on the crucial points, to be aggressive and not to let the opponent decide the outcome of those crucial points. So yes, he likes to go to the net. He has good hands, so he's very adept at playing drop shots. So, I mean, here we have an image of what could potentially be a very complete player.
It's fascinating that you say that, and we will talk about his coach Ferrero. We will talk about those crucial moments on court where it seems he doesn't feel the pressure. But of course, the natural link for people that are just getting into tennis or just watching him for the first time will notice that he's Spanish. So how has Rafael Nadal influenced his style of play?
Well, I wouldn't say so. Actually, I think that his playing style does not resemble anyone of the big three. To be honest, there are maybe some similarities, but overall, I mean, in the press conference in New York, he was sort of asked, and then who did he try to copy? And he said, if I must answer, then I think my game is similar to Roger Federer. But he meant in terms of being always aggressive, trying to finish points at the net. There are maybe some similarities in his technique of his forehand to Nadal and Federer. But overall, I'm not. I think he's his own man, and I think he should stay that way. And anytime someone mentions those kind of comparisons, he goes away from it. He does not want to be compared to anyone, and I think that is the right direction. And anyone who sees him for the first time, I think will be convinced that I'm right here. He really is his own man.
Yeah, and I think it's a shame that we always have to try and compare a young player to a current legend, for example.
But it's fun. It's fun. We love to do that. I mean, I love to do that. I would happily do it, but I don't think he resembles any of the big three.
Well, speaking of fun, I thought this was quite surprising that his coach, Juan Carlos Ferrero, who you've just mentioned, a former Grand Slam champion himself, of course, he actually compared Carlos to Roger Federer. So both he and his coach have done the same thing. No pressure on him now, Carlos, but he cited his ability to play on all surfaces and all styles. Do you agree with that? I know you've already spoken a little bit about him comparing himself to Federer, but do you agree? And if not, is there someone that you could compare him to on the tour that perhaps isn't such a big player?
I mean, as far as the whole he's a complete player, can play on all surfaces story goes, I'm absolutely on board with that, and results speak for themselves. He played solid on grass. I mean, he lost to Medvedev in the second round of Wimbledon, but he won his first title on clay in Umag this year, his first ATP title. He's breaking through right now on hard courts. So yes, and what I mentioned earlier, that his variety and his ability to play different styles of tennis will help him over the years to play on all surfaces.
He became more widely known, of course, after his 5-set victory over Stefanos Tsitsipas in the third round of the US Open. But this is someone who won his first ATP Tour match at just 16, entered the top 100 at 17, and won his first ATP Tour title at 18. When you first spoke to him for tennis majors, when was that? And also, what impression were you left with?
We spoke at the end of last year, so during his preparations for this season. And what you see on the court and in the press conferences, that is more or less the impression I had, because he seemed like a really down-to-earth guy and outspoken. I know a bit of Spanish, so we spoke in Spanish, and I could tell he felt more comfortable answering in Spanish. So I think maybe some of his English press conferences don't show his character to the fullest.
In what ways?
In more ways?
Yes.
I don't understand.
Okay. He said that, like, the forehand.
Yeah, trying to be aggressive all the time with the forehand, backhand.
But he's going to improve his English, which is very good, by the way, for an 18-year-old. So I guess when he does that, people are going to see more of his character. And on the court, he's all smiles, and you can see that he enjoys the life of a pro tennis player. Actually, when we spoke, that was one of the things he emphasized, because usually when I speak to teenagers and young players, one of the questions that is a must is how do they live the life, because many of their friends are living completely different lives. And Carlos said that yes, sometimes when he sees, I don't know, his friends going to party or something, he can feel a bit different, but he said that it is a small sacrifice to make to achieve what he wants to achieve. So he's I think he found, at least my impression was that he found the right balance between being extremely focused and not being obsessed. Yes, he can relax, and he's taken up golfing. That's what Juan Carlos Ferrero told me. He likes karting as well. He plays video games. So in a way, off the court, he's just a regular 18-year-old boy. But on the other side, there is this side of him that is all into tennis, and I think that he's been able to find that healthy balance, which will certainly help him to go as far as he can in his tennis career.
Do we know how good he is at golf? That's the key question.
Not at the moment. Maybe Rafa can give him some lessons.
Oh, is Rafa good at golf?
I suppose so. I mean, he's been playing tournaments as well, and I know he loves it. So.
Okay, well, it is a commitment for Carlos. I mean, if you start playing tennis at 4, you turn pro at 15. It's quite the commitment, as you say, and it's very different upbringing to his friends. And he also told you during that piece that his dream is to become a world number 1 and win a Grand Slam. He cited that Wimbledon was his favourite so far, but I have to bet that the US Open is rapidly rising in that list. You've also spoken to a former world number 1 just recently, Sasha, who believes that he will achieve those dreams.
Yes, Yevgeny Kafelnikov is pretty keen on Alcaraz. He says he's already a big fan, that he's watched his Tsitsipas match from the first to the very last point. And actually, why we talked, Yevgeny and me, is because of Yevgeny's tweet, in which he said that he thinks Carlos is going to be the world number 1 in maximum 3 years. So I was trying to see whether that was just euphoria after the big win, or Yevgeny really stood by his comments, and he did. He did not want to reverse those comments. On the contrary, he told me that Alcaraz backhand reminds him of his backhand when he was at the top of his game, which says volumes, because we know how good Kafelnikov's backhand was. But I expected Yevgeny to tell me good things about his game. I mean, it is obvious that he's got game, but one thing I did not expect to hear from Yevgeny, which was quite interesting, is that there is no reason for Carlos to feel pressure. He thinks that he's got a good team around him, led with Juan Carlos Ferrero, his coach, which we mentioned, but it's not only him. Actually, I think the story about Carlos' background is pretty interesting, because let's say a man from the shadow is his agent, Albert Molina, who used to be an umpire. Do you remember Molina?
I do.
Yeah, and he's an umpire turned agent, and he's noticed him when he was 11 years old at one of the tournaments that gathered the most promising players. And he's been watching him since he was 11 years old, and he somehow persuaded his father that they should hire him, the family should hire him as an agent when he was only 12. At first, his father wasn't really willing to. For a 12-year-old boy to have an agent, it's not the most common thing even in these crazy times. But at the end, he agreed, and Molina started to put the pieces together. He found him sponsors as well. So he's sponsored by Lotto, he's sponsored by Babolat. And after his 15th birthday, when he was 15 years old, he helped find him the coach. So he invited Juan Carlos Ferrero to take a look, come and take a look at this kid. It was actually in Murcia, a futures tournament in Murcia, which is the hometown of Carlos' hometown. And Ferrero came to watch him, and the rest is history. So Carlos moved to his academy. It wasn't an instant movement. At first, he spent 2 days at Juan Carlos Ferrero's academy in Villena, which is a 2 hours train drive from Murcia, which I said was Carlos' hometown. And now, more and more, he's spending time at the academy when he's not playing. So that's how Carlos Alcaraz, let's say, came to be, which just emphasizes the importance of having the right team of people around you. And I think when we last spoke about Novak, I mentioned that all these greats, if we look at the big three, one thing that is that they have in common and that is frequently overlooked is the consistency in their teams. They don't change very often. And I think I think Carlos is on a good way to have that with Juan Carlos Ferrero, who is obviously a coach that demands discipline, but as Carlos himself told me, knows how to find a balance between being strict and demanding on the court and being relaxed off the court, knowing that tennis is not life in the end. So that is one thing that makes me think that Alcaraz can really fulfill his full potential.
It's quite interesting there what you said about the agent. How rare is that? I'm sure people are listening and thinking, well, how rare is it that a player at that age would have representation? Is that quite a rare thing?
Oh, you would think so, especially at 12 years old. That's why I said in these crazy times, because I mean, if you look at football or soccer players, if we have American listeners, I mean, they have agents from early on and they drop out of school early on. It's kind of similar with tennis players that they go to school, they don't go to regular school, but I don't know if it's that common to have some sort of financial help or something like that, but to have an agent at 12 years old, actually I got this info from a very insightful article from our colleague Rafael Plaza, and in that same article he says that Molina had a tough task from two sides. First was persuading Carlos' father, but secondly to persuade people at IMG that it's worth to start collaborating with a 12-year-old boy. As we can see, his instinct was pretty good.
It certainly was. On to Juan Carlos Ferrero, who you mentioned again there. What is his most challenging task moving forward with Alcaraz? What needs to be improved, do you think?
If you ask Evgeny Kafelnikov, he says that he does not need to improve anything game-wise, that he just needs to stay on the path that he is now. But I feel when he becomes he's right now playing without pressure. But as we can see, I mean, for example, Stefanos Tsitsipas is a great example. When he broke through, he did not have any pressure. But after you have your first great results, people and especially your opponents tend to look at you differently.
I didn't expect to play quarterfinals here, so I think it's a really good performance from me in these matches. So I'm really happy to play these kind of matches.
And that brings different kind of pressure and different kind of expectations. So I think Ferrero, being the former world number one and Grand Slam champion, he's going to have some valuable inputs for Alcaraz how to deal with all that, because I think media hype, by now he's used to it. I mean, it is impressive that he's achieved what he's achieved at 18 years old. I mean, he's the youngest in open era to be in the quarterfinals and US Open. And at the Grand Slams, there's been no one younger since Michael Chang, which was 31 years ago, 1990. And everyone tends to talk about his age a lot. But for me, it's not the age that matters. It's the quality of his game, how he's able to mix it up, how he's able to stay present, which is really tough to do, and which is the goal of every great tennis player, is to stay in the present. And Djokovic often mentions that, and Carlos has been able to do that on a big stage. I mean, he was almost 2-1 down against Tsitsipas. He was 2-1 down against Gojovcik, and he didn't give up. And you need to have a special kind of character to be able to do that, especially at 18 years old. But as I said, I think we should more focus on the quality of his game. That is what is going to bring him, I think, multiple Grand Slam titles, and not his age. I mean, Michael Chang, which I've just mentioned, I think he broke all the records for being the youngest winner, youngest this and youngest that, and he's had a tremendous career. Of course, winning more than 30 ATP titles, but he's only won one slam. So it doesn't matter, like in skiing, it doesn't matter at that first crossroads, what's your time? What matters is your time at the finish line. And I think Alcaraz can do pretty well at the finish line.
Does he strike you as someone who's fearless in those most crucial moments on court already?
I mean, surely. I mean, all you need to know about his character at this moment, and I think he's going to have ups and downs with that, with all the things I've just previously mentioned, with the pressure and expectations. But right now, the way he played the last points against Tsitsipas after wasting 2 match points, and especially that second match point, which he should have won because he built that point perfectly. He played a drop shot. He had a lob which he missed by, I don't know, maybe a few millimeters. And after that, to stay composed and to play a point the way he did to finish it with a winner, I mean, that speaks a lot about his character and his approach and mentality in key moments.
Yeah, and I'd urge people to go over to tennismajors.com and read that article that you wrote about Alcaraz. He discussed practicing with the likes of Federer and Dominic Thiem and grasping how much more mentally tough they were because the margin for error is much smaller at the top. It seems that he's learned a lot from those two and other people as well. We've ticked off comparisons, Sasha, that we all feel the need to do, as we said. Now it's time for that other classic conversation. What does the future hold for Alcaraz? Because I know that you are very good at predicting tennis careers. That's one of your specialities, my friend.
Is it? Great. I must say that I'm very happy with myself for conducting interviews with Carlos Alcaraz and Leila Fernandez this year. So I feel pretty good about myself.
People need to speak to you and they'll start playing well.
Yeah. Maybe I'll be a journalist turned agent. So his future.
What can we expect? Yeah.
I really think that we can expect big things as long as he stays focused, stays determined. I feel that his serve can be better. He did serve pretty powerful in his match against Tsitsipas, but if you look at his average speed against Gojovcik, it was, I think, 15 to 20 kilometers per hour slower. So he needs to, and of course, he needs to work on his consistency. He's been pretty consistent so far, but what I would like to know is how is he going to deal with the first adversity that comes his way? Maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 losses in a row or something like that. That is also a good measuring stick to find out what kind of character is a player. And I think when that test comes, that he is going to rise to the task. And I'm not sure that the quarterfinals of a slam is his reality at this moment. He's maybe surpassed it, but I do feel that in the future, and not so distant future, he'll be able to be in the second week on the slams on the regular basis, and with time to win slams as well.
How would you compare the hype that's currently surrounding him with that of Rafael Nadal? Obviously, coming up, he was such a prodigy. But is there any way of looking at that and saying, okay, Alcaraz will also receive similar attention back home?
I think he is, as you said at the beginning, he is the talk of the town, but not of the town of towns, because of many towns in the world right now. Because I think everyone who loves tennis, and I think this breakthrough allowed him to be heard in the ears of the casual fans, and I think that brings to the hype. We've already spoken about sponsors. He's got many sponsors. There's going to be more of those for sure. But in a way, he's already used to the life of a tennis star. Of course, this hype cannot be measured with anything he previously experienced. But I think he is well equipped to deal with that. At least from what I could conclude based on watching him on TV and press conferences and that one interview we had, he really struck me as the guy who is down to earth and who won't be bothered by those kind of stories, I don't know, media coverage and stuff like that.
Yeah, certainly seems like he's going to be a fan favorite. As you mentioned, he seems like such a friendly guy, is a friendly guy. Finally, Sasha, could you just put into context what he has achieved so far? Let's remind people, just 18.
Yeah, actually, I've got a question for you. He's one of the rare teenagers to beat a top 5 seed in a slam in the last 10 years. Can you name the other two? It's a tough question.
Is it male or both? Male, female?
Male.
That is a very good question. How about you give me the year?
I'll give you the years. It's 2011 and 2014.
Okay, and a top 5 player.
You can guess one, but I couldn't remember the second. One of my readers told me.
Tell me the difference in age as well, because that would be fascinating between Carlos now and these players.
Well, I'm not sure, but they were similar. I mean, they were teenagers, all teenagers. So Bernard Tomic beat Robin Soderling at Wimbledon in 2011, and
Yes.
3 years later, also at Wimbledon, Kyrgios beat Nadal. I thought that you might remember that.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one I should have got. Kyrgios beat Nadal.
Yeah. So yes, when you said put it into context, this does not happen. Guys, this does not happen quite often. So 3 times in the last 10 years that a teenager has beaten a top 5 seed in a slam. So Alcaraz is in a way ahead of his time. He's already going to be top 40 with this result. If he beats Felix in the quarterfinals, he's going to climb up the rankings even more. As I said, he broke through top 100 in May, but in that interview he told me that his short-term goals were to break into top 50 and to qualify for the Australian Open main draw. He qualified for main draw and got to the second round, and now he's in the quarters of the US Open, breaking into top 40. So he's on his checklist, everything is the way it should be.
I fall into the court at the end of the match. I said in my family, in my friends, in all the people who was supporting me in Murcia, that all my team that also was supporting me from the.
Well, any tennis players listening, make sure you take part in an exclusive interview with Sasa Ozmo for Tennis Majors. You will crack the top 50, top 40. You'll do well at a Grand Slam. That's for sure. Sasha, we always learn a lot listening to you, and based on our chat today, I look forward to the interview that you have with Carlos after he becomes a Grand Slam champion. How does that sound?
That sounds great, and I hope he listens to this and grants me an exclusive interview after his first Grand Slam title.
Absolutely. Cheers to that. A big thank you to Sasa Ozmo for joining us on The Volley. You can read his work over at tennismajors.com, where this podcast is available. You can also listen on Spotify and all main media platforms. Guys, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. I've been Max Whittle. We'll speak to you soon.